A failed superhero project caused the best superhero team in the world to break up. Many years later, the ghost of the failed experiment is set to return for vengeance. Can the old captain and the new generation of heroes take him down? Using different comic panels, we are introduced to the famous and best superhero team known as Team Zenith. The military then initiated the TH program, wherein the team underwent an enhancement procedure with radiation called Gamma-13. As a result, the team leader, Captain Zoom, became faster and stronger, but his older brother, Concussion, became evil. He single-handedly killed the other members of the team named Ace, Marksman, and Durabia. With no other options, Captain Zoom fights Concussion. The battle ends with Concussion vanishing from a dimensional rift. As per Captain Zoom, he not only lost his brother but also some of his powers. But Zoom had no idea that Concussion managed to survive. 30 years later, a scientist named Dr. Grant discovers that Concussion is already on his way back to their universe. Dr. Grant is the sidekick of the original Team Zenith and the scientist behind the Zenith program. General Larrabee, the military officer who is leading the program, orders the reactivation of the Zenith program and tasks Dr. Grant to form a new Team Zenith. The general also wants Dr. Grant to bring back Zoom no matter what it takes. The scene changes to Zoom, who is now living a normal life. Captain Zoom, or Jack Shepard, is now nothing but an automobile repair shop owner. Jack then sees a woman outside. When she sees that Jack is looking, she signals a car to run past her. In order to get Jack's attention, Jack immediately helps the woman. Dr. Grant suddenly arrives, along with security details. Dr. Grant introduces the woman as Dr. Holloway, a psychologist that works for him in the Zenith program. The two doctors convince Jack to help them in the program, but Jack immediately declines. With no other choice, Dr. Grant shoots Jack with a tranquilizer gun. As Jack loses consciousness, we see 4 children that possess superpowers. First is a 6-year-old named Cindy Collins, who has super strength. Then a 16-year-old named Summer Jones, who has telekinetic powers and is an empath. Next is Dylan West, a 17-year-old teen who can turn invisible. And lastly, Tucker Williams, a 12-year-old boy who can enlarge and inflate any part of his body. Afterwards, Jack wakes up and finds himself in Area 52. Dr. Grant explains to Jack that he can either stay and mentor the new Team Zenith they will be forming or he will go to prison. Jack initially considers going to prison, but when Dr. Grant says Jack will also be paid $500,000, he immediately changes his mind. The two meet with Dr. Holloway, and Dr. Grant reveals that Dr. Holloway is a big fan of Zoom. Then the two doctors show Jack the 10 candidates for the next Team Zenith. Among the top candidates are Dylan, Summer, Tucker, and Cindy. Jack is surprised to see that all of the candidates are children. Dr. Holloway assures Jack that the superpowers of these children occur naturally. Additionally, they can now execute the Gamma-13 experiment safely without any negative side effects, unlike what happened before. Although skeptical, Jack still goes with the flow. Jack, Dr. Grant, and Dr. Holloway start assessing the children as they showcase their powers to them. In the end, Dylan, Summer, Tucker, and Cindy are chosen to be the next members of the new Team Zenith. Afterwards, we see Dylan flirting with Summer. Dr. Holloway arrives and introduces Jack to the team. The 4 children don't get along well, and with Jack's unwillingness to properly teach them, it's chaos for the new Team Zenith. Meanwhile, in the control room of Area 51, General Larrabee is talking to Dr. Grant. It turns out they're just using Jack as bait for Concussion. General Larrabee wants the children to be ready to face off Concussion upon his arrival, which is 8 days from now. Later on, Dr. Grant shows Jack the costume he made for him. Looking at the suit, Jack is mesmerized that he didn't notice that Dr. Grant already left. In the other room, Dr. Holloway shows the children comic books about Zoom. She then reveals to them that Jack is Captain Zoom. Afterwards, Tucker and Cindy go to Jack to ask him about being a superhero. Although Jack answers them, he's annoyed, and his answers are unpleasant and sarcastic. Dylan and Summer are not happy about Jack's attitude towards them. Then we see the adults training the children to control their powers better, but they're not getting the hang of it. Jack points out to Dr. Holloway that the children are not yet ready and will not be ready for anything. However, Dr. Holloway sarcastically remarks that it's because Jack is not training them properly. In a meeting, Dr. Holloway discusses with General Larrabee and the board members that the children are still suppressing their abilities. General Larrabee insists that they need the children to be ready as soon as possible because of an imminent threat. Jack then suddenly arrives and interrupts the meeting, but the general immediately kicks him out of the room. The scene changes to Jack and other employees of Area 52 playing with the children. After the game, Jack asks Dr. Holloway about what happened in the meeting. But instead of answering the question, Dr. Holloway rants about Jack being negative all the time. The next day, Jack takes the children into a restricted part of Area 52. With the help of his old robot friend PIB, Jack shows them a spaceship. He then takes the children for a ride, even stopping by Wendy's for a drive-thru. Not long after, Dr. Holloway sees on the news about the spaceship flying around the city and making a drive-thru. Dr. Holloway confronts Jack about what he's done, but Jack just shrugs her off. Later that night, Cindy asks if she can stay with Jack because she had a bad dream. Keeping his wall up, Jack tells Cindy to sleep on the couch. The two have a sincere talk about Cindy's abilities. Cindy then drags the couch near Jack so they can sleep next to each other. The next day, the four children undergo a fighting simulation. But upon hearing that the simulation is just them evading paintballs, Dylan leaves. In addition to the paintball session, the team also trains to enhance their superpowers. Once again, after the recent paintball session, Jack brings some cake for the children and jokes about their failures. However, Summer doesn't take it well and blames Jack for not teaching them properly and only caring for himself. Afterward, Jack goes to talk to Dylan in the isolation room. Jack reveals that, just like Dylan, he used to escape Area 52 as well, hence the construction of the isolation room. Jack also reveals that he has a brother, but before he can say more, Jack asks Dr. Grant to release Dylan. It is then shown that only 2 days before Concussion's return, in her office, Dr. Holloway is recording the children's progress when she notices Jack and Dylan through the security camera. The two are in the lab where the military conducted the first Gamma-13 project. There, Jack discovers Dylan's other ability called Mindsight, which allows him to have a vision of a certain person. Jack tells Dylan that every team needs a leader who can see the way ahead of them, and that Dylan can be the leader of the new Team Zenith. The two continue to talk about the old Team Zenith. Jack reveals to Dylan that the Gamma-13 experiment made Concussion evil. Dylan then realizes that Concussion is Jack's brother. In his room, we see Jack reminiscing about his past while looking at the pictures of his brother and former teammates. He also remembers the time he spent with the children and smiles afterward. The next day, everyone thinks that Jack has left, but it turns out that he gathers a team to take the children's measurements to make their superhero suits. Finally, Jack will be teaching them the proper way of being a hero. The children undergo training once again, and this time they are getting better at controlling and utilizing their powers. Not far away from Area 52, Dr. Grant shows General Larrabee where Concussion will emerge. Then, it is revealed that they're just going to use the children for distraction. When the timing is right, they will capture Concussion using the sonic net that Dr. Grant designed specifically to catch him. General Larrabee asks if they have other options. Dr. Grant says that if only Zoom still has his full powers, he can create a mega vortex that can reverse the Gamma-13's effect on Concussion. Later that night, Jack organizes a celebration for the children as they finally completed their training. But the party is interrupted by General Larrabee, who orders everyone to go back to work. Jack then sees crates of Gamma-13 and questions General Larrabee's decision. In the middle of their sleep, Jack wakes up the children and brings them to old Team Zenith's hideout in Area 52. There, the four children come up with their superhero name. Ames, Dylan as Houdini, Summer as Wonder, Tucker as Megaboy, and lastly Cindy as Princess. Jack then tells everyone that they will escape before they are put under the military's experiment. Suddenly, Dylan has a vision of Dr. Grant and General Larrabee talking about the Zenith program. He reveals to Jack that his brother is still alive as he sees it in his vision. Jack immediately confronts Dr. Grant and General Larrabee. He's mad that they didn't tell him that Concussion is alive, and now they're going to use the children to fight his brother. The general doesn't care about his sentiments and sends him to the isolation room. Meanwhile, Dr. Holloway arrives, along with the security guards, to escort the kids to the lab. But it turns out that she also has powers. Dr. Holloway has rainbow-colored super breath and helps the children break Jack out of the isolation room. Together, they escape using the spaceship that Summer telekinetically fixes. 10 minutes before Concussion's arrival, they go to Concussion's arrival point, and Jack sets down, planning to talk to his brother, but Concussion doesn't listen and starts hitting Jack. While this is happening, General Larrabee watches from a distance as Concussion beats Jack. Concussion is about to finish his brother when he's distracted by Pip. The new Team Zenith assembles. Concussion sees them and is about to start fighting Cindy when the military launches the sonic net, but Concussion just repels the net to Cindy's direction. Fortunately, all of Jack's speed returns, and he manages to save Cindy. General Larrabee orders to load the second sonic net, but Dr. Grant says they only have one. Concussion starts attacking the military. Jack, on the other hand, speeds his way back to Area 52 to grab the suit that Dr. Grant made for him, and when he comes back, Zoom comes back. Together with the new Team Zenith and Dr. Holloway, they take on Concussion and toss him into a mega vortex that Zoom is creating. Dr. Grant shouts to Zoom that to save Concussion, he must close the vortex. Zoom successfully evades all of Concussion's attacks and closes the vortex. The vortex then collapses on Concussion, and he loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he's back to his normal self. Jack and Connor finally have a peaceful reunion. He introduces Connor to Dr. Holloway and the children and getting Dr. Grant back. They all form the new Team Zenith. 3 months later, we see Cindy star in a Rapunzel play where she used her super strength to pull up the prince. Meanwhile, Tucker is now part of a soccer team as a goalkeeper. Moreover, Summer is now part of the cheering squad and is also dating Dylan. But when the situation calls for it, the 4 children, together with Zoom, form the new Team Zenith. The movie concludes with a scene of Team Zenith soaring into the sky, all set to rescue and save the day. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join our community and never miss out on our latest videos.